pitch clock. What are your thoughts?
As far as the timing of the game, I think it's great. I think in the PCL last year, when we had a 30-run ball game that took 3 hours and 10 minutes, where prior might have taken 4.5 to 5 hours with the amount of pitchers you go through and the pitchers are throwing and taking time between pitches and at-bats. So in terms of pace of play, I think it's working. This year in the Atlantic League, we are implementing the time clock as well as a disengagement rule, which means you can only step off in our league one time per at-bat until, if you pick off again, you either have to get the guy out or you balked him over.
Wow.
So it's a super interesting rule.
Yeah.
It's meant to limit the amount of pickoffs and the amount of wasted time in baseball. I don't know, I'm more of a, evolutionist. I believe the game evolves over time. Baseball's never been stagnant as a sport. And I think if people are starting to lose attention relative to the past, I think it's important that we try and change it a little bit so we can get people more engaged in the game. And in terms of base runners, I think they're going to be a lot more aggressive. They will also have more tendencies, when they do see a pitch clock getting to a certain number, I think they're going to have more tendencies to get a little antsier.
Yeah.
So that could be a benefit to a pitcher if they're cognizant of it, or it could be bad if they aren't and they're just getting good jumps every time.
So when you're on the mound, you've seen in the big leagues, is the same with the league here, is the pitch clock down behind the catcher. Is it something you can see that?
Yeah.
Is that a distraction at all?
It's a good baseline for your internal clock.
Yeah.
So everyone has an internal clock. When you field a ground ball, you know how long you have until the runner is probably going to be there. So it's more of just you take a glance at it, you're all right, I have 8 seconds, so I can, I have 8 seconds to move about space and time. So I think it's good. It's fine.
Yeah. Do you have a special routine when you're out there at all, or is it changed depending on the situation, or do you know in your head, for me to perform at my best, I have to do this, I do this every single time?
Not necessarily. I like to keep it as whatever comes to mind. Sometimes I'll do some quirky things out there.
Yeah.
It's kind of just what I felt to do at the moment. I try not to have too many pre-pitch routines because, like you said, with the clock, it's just going to build up, and then you feel oh man, I just got to come set and throw.
Yeah.
I'd rather just toe the rubber. Me and the catcher usually, hopefully pre-game, scout it a little bit so we have a pretty good understanding of what we want to throw.
Yeah.
And just pretty much get the sign and go. Me as a pitcher, I'm lefty, so I know what my pitches do, how they break, and then I can decide if it's a lefty or righty hitter.
Yeah.
And then within lefty or righty hitters, there's typically buckets, a big 3-hole hitter who has a big, upward swing, that's kind of bucket A, and a little lefty who likes to slap the ball the other way, and little things like that.
Yeah.
So I like to pitch with my strengths and then later kind of pick at their weaknesses and then kind of go down the other hole. But it's definitely good to talk to your catcher before a game because especially in our situation, we want to be put down one side and go. You don't want to think too much as a pitcher, and we also don't want to take too much time as a pitcher because then you have no time to worry about the running game, and it's just as important as making a pitch.